Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Look, I'm bullish on Tesla. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have so much invested in it if I wasn't. And yes, long term, it looks like an easy bet, for lack of a better word, although I use that term easy very loosely. However, as far as Tesla is concerned, it doesn't take too much for Tesla to get to $50 billion a year in net income. In fact, if Tesla got back to the kind of margins we saw when the economy was in better shape and interest rates were lower, then we'd be about halfway there already, with no increase in production. Now, given that Tesla only make fewer than 2 million vehicles a year currently, and even if Cybertruck takes 2 years to ramp, and same for Texas and Berlin and Megapacks, in other words, perhaps by about 2026, then that alone should be enough for the business to be hitting those numbers, assuming that Tesla have reduced some costs over that time, or the industry in general, which is what it is working hard to do as the bandwidth of the supply chain increases, battery costs come down and energy density rises, and perhaps interest rates dropping somewhat as well. And if Tesla hits an annualized rate of $50 billion a year net profit in 2026 sometime, then the stock price will be, well, it'll be whatever it is based on the current PE ratio, which is based on the irrational manic depressant with bipolar disorder known as the market, but likely fluctuating somewhere between 30 and 60, or 1.5 trillion and 3 trillion market cap, or around $500 to $1,000 stock price. Now, with these numbers, I'm not even including the next model, which for 2 million vehicles only requires about 100 gigawatt a year factory of cells, which we know CATL are competent in building, whether in Texas, Mexico, China, or the Middle East. This is all achievable, and we heard Ron Barron on CNBC very bullish about Tesla's Model 2, saying it'll be out in 2025 and will be a big seller and cost half as much to build, yet be 1/3 less in price. Presumably, he was comparing it with the Model 3 when he said that. I mean, he's just repeating Elon's words, basically. But just for some quick math, if Model 3 has an ASP of $42,000 and a margin of 18%, it is $37,000 cost per vehicle. Half of that is $18,500, and if the Model 2 was 1/3 the price of the Model 3, then it would cost $30,000 without subsidies or credits, leaving a gross profit of $11,500 per vehicle. Now, is 2025 actually that great a year to be launching this next model? I mean, at the start of this year, when Mexico was announced, and we were hearing that it might take just 7 months to build the factory, with many even thinking production could start early next year. Of course, Ron Barron's guess is likely as good as any of ours too, but it is probably about right at the current rate. I'm not really sure what the holdup is. You'd think Tesla could have a new factory up and running within a year, implying production would be running next year. It would, of course, be the Gen 3 parallel production line that will get the costs down that low. Well, that and it being a smaller vehicle with a smaller battery. And the production technique doesn't sound too extreme. Gen 3 looked fairly axiomatic and made sense. No new revolutionary dry battery electrode type processes required in order to achieve that. This is just EV manufacturing. Just like Battery Day, how the front and rear castings fit into the structural battery pack. Tesla did that. We've seen the results. We have even seen said vehicle torn down. We have seen the entire production line. Tesla achieved that. Tesla is very good at manufacturing EVs. What they are not good at is getting timelines correct on solving various other engineering objectives. But 2025 is a long time without the financials to support the stock price. There could be a lot of ups and downs over that time, but likely be worth the wait. It would just be nice to see what we were waiting for, or having some idea of how Tesla will get there. We don't really know that much, but somewhat assumed a $25,000 compact that would be more suited for robotaxis, may or may not even have a steering wheel or pedals, and may or may not actually even be sold to the public. Anyway, my point is that Tesla can reach $500 to $1,000 stock price by around 2026, without any major breakthroughs needing to happen, like 4680 ramping or AI reaching a certain level. The fact is, we know Tesla are perfectly capable of making EVs. We know Tesla can make them very profitable, and we assume it very likely there is a lot of demand for a lower cost, smaller EV. Even if the majority of that demand might be from Asia or Europe, it is still a big market. I'm just wondering, and I am not the only one, why is it taking so long? What is the holdup? How is Tesla still going to accomplish 50% compounded annual growth on average? A number Elon still stands by. I mean, Ron Barron also thinks Tesla will hit 20 million by 2030. I'm in a more similar camp as many of the major Tesla fund managers, the realist camp, and wondering why Tesla are taking just so long to get this next model out. It was understandable earlier as it was to do with the cells. Perhaps 4680 cells would have been the answer, but now we've heard that Gen 3 can use any cell type, so that should all be sorted by now. So much so that the actual Model 2 factory should by now be underway. I find this very strange, why it is indeed taking so long. I mean, some bulls say you're not even allowed to ask or question Tesla's moves. Elon knows what he's doing, and how could a mere mortal like me understand how to play 4D chess? But this doesn't mean I'm not bullish on Tesla and think it could double or quadruple in the next few years, from a relatively conservative perspective. There could be other events like a crazy AI boom, and currently the biggest word floating around Tesla is dojo, which is the part of the company that might very well catch such bubble, and it could take the stock price for another ride. Like how Microsoft did so well in the dot-com bubble. It didn't reach the same high again for another 15 years. These things happen. But if Tesla can get its run rate to just 2.5 million with their current factories and a further 300,000 with Cybertruck, then we're at 2.8 million vehicles a year. If there's an average of $10,000 profit per vehicle, then that's $28 billion. Then if Tesla can produce another 2 million Model 2 vehicles and potentially make another $10,000 per vehicle there, then we're at $50 billion with vehicles, and still assuming FSD has not yet been solved. Then we have energy. Now, like Ron Barron also said, energy is currently on about $6 billion a year. He got that figure totally correct. For comparison, vehicles are over $80 billion. Then Ron Barron said that he thinks energy will go up 30x, or to $240 billion, which is a very big number. That would actually only require about half a terawatt hour of cells, though. So it's actually not too insane, at least if we are talking by around 2030. And at 20% margin, then that's another $50 billion. Of course, like I said, this probably isn't closer until the end of the decade. Again, Ron Barron is really just taking Elon's word on these numbers. And the thing we can pretty much rely on with Elon's targets is they are always delayed. Yes, except for that time the Model Y launched early. So all Ron Barron has done has just repeated what Elon has said in the past, locked in his actual targets as fact and basis for investment. Anyway, we're at around $100 billion in gross profit by that stage. OPEX is probably still relatively low, and net profits probably end up being around $75 billion, which is insane, and perhaps this is around 27 or 2028. Feel free to add in any other further future products from Tesla as well, or the potential that robots are performing or robotaxis. But either way, we have Tesla probably approaching $5 trillion, or close to around Aramco and Apple combined. It's all there, and that's with Tesla still only selling around 5 million vehicles a year. What happens if Tesla actually do hit 20 million? Elon saying 5 million from the van and compact alone, plus the other 3 million from the current models, that's about 8 million already, which would take us to above $100 billion in net profit. But do you wonder what kind of models these remaining 12 million will be to get to the 20 million? All robotaxis? Well, we don't get told this. It's just to be assumed that they will have some magic models to come out, perhaps. Okay, great. I'm sure there is enough demand for at least 5 to 8 million Teslas a year. I believe that over several years, Tesla can find ways of getting the costs down low enough to increase the demand and get profits to about $10,000 per vehicle. I mean, they have the best engineers on top of this, and they do outstanding jobs. It's just, we've been waiting for a while, I would say basically since the opening of Giga Texas, waiting to see where Tesla's cell supply will come from in order to get to 5 million vehicles a year. When to see a new factory for a new model. I just kind of want to see some commitment somewhere to show Tesla is invested in this future. I want to hear that Tesla will be consuming 80 gigawatt hours a year from CATL's new factory. Sure, some of you just have faith, but that's not my investment strategy. I like numbers, and these numbers do look good. I just want to see some action. I mean, in all honesty, I obviously have some faith too, as it seems so obvious that Tesla will do this, and they have said they would. It's just very little has actually happened yet. In a globalized world, effective communication knows no boundaries. Introducing Verbalate, your ultimate voice translation tool. Verbalate bridges language gaps effortlessly, allowing you to translate videos into foreign languages with unmatched precision. Simply upload your video and Verbalate works its magic, providing accurate translations with the same voice in multiple languages. But that's not all. Verbalate's unique feature allows it to sync the translated speech with lifelike lip movements. Imagine connecting with a global audience effortlessly, breaking language barriers, and fostering cross-cultural connections. For example, look how natural I look speaking Chinese. Hi, this is my voice translated into speaking Mandarin. As you can see, it looks completely natural, and my lips are moving perfectly. Verbalate, where innovation meets communication. Try it today and unlock a world of possibilities. Speak, sync, connect. Visit our website and start talking to the world today.